on insurance when you bundle home and auto with Progressive. I heard that,
Hey, Tanya. Hi, everyone.
Good evening.
Hey.
Good evening.
Welcome, everyone. I just get so tickled pink that you guys actually show up and you want to hang out with me. Wow. This is great. This is great. Well,
You're all kind of people.
thank you, Frank. Well, when I last checked it just a few minutes ago, it said we had about 45 people that have registered to participate tonight. So I'm going to give it a few more minutes. We've got about 25 people on so far. So let's just give it a few more minutes. I hope everyone is doing well tonight. Ready for Valentine's Day tomorrow. And I hope you all got your free design. Did you all get your free love design?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
No,
Oh,
where
wonderful.
is it? Where can I find it?
Well, I moderate and admin several Rhinestone groups. But if you haven't seen the post, it's either in the Rhinestone Syndicate,
Okay.
which is my group, Creative Minds and Bold Ideas. You can sign up and search through, go to the files, and you'll find the Love with the Bow design there. I've also posted it in Rhinestone Silhouette Hub.
Okay, I'm in
Okay.
that one. Okay.
And I've also posted it, I believe, in Rhinestone University 2.0.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
These animals here. Cool. We watched him run a bit.
I wonder if it is personal. That's the case. He put some files on.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go ahead and let you guys know. You guys are going to get the extreme pleasure of not having to listen to me tonight. I'm going to introduce you to a new friend of mine. His name is Matthew Parker. And Matthew is I don't know, like God just dropped him in my lap. And so because he blessed me with you, because God blessed Matthew to me, I am blessing Matthew with all of you because you guys know how generous I am and how much I love to share. And so Matthew is going to lead our training tonight. I hope that you guys will take good notes, but if you don't, I will post this replay in my YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, I hope you will do so. And in about another minute at 7:05, we're going to go ahead and get started.
No, Tanya, I'm just the guest. You're the silhouette expert.
Oh no, I can't be the guest on this one. You said you were going to do
No.
it.
Well, there's just so many people that use Studio, so you have to find a way to bring in advanced techniques from other software, for the Studio users.
Well, that is
I started
true.
out with it too, but I just don't use it extensively very much anymore. So if there's things that I do, and actually, I can't remember, it was a few months ago, I just checked for an update and my software updated to whatever the current version is because I was using a version prior to that and I was so used to that. And so I might fumble around for a minute, but if there's things that I do that you found an easier way to do them, just please interject anyone on the call,
No problem. And I'm like you. I was using version 4.5 and loved it. And got a new laptop and went to go put it on Silhouette on my new laptop and got that new interface, which I hate. I think they took something out of the trace feature, in my opinion. I think the trace used to work a lot better in the older version. So I may try to roll my version back just because, again, I was so used to the old interface and I loved the way the trace feature worked in that version. But I know technology is changing and the updates are supposed to make the software better, but when I'm a fan of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Here. I don't like the new version either.
Yeah. It's not,
Yeah, it just felt like some things were not where I expected them to be, but
yeah, they did. They moved some of the icons out of some of the places and moved them someplace else. And I'm just like, why would you change the page setup icon? It's always been where you found your settings, your page mat size, and all of that. Why would you take part of that out of the page setup and put it someplace else that's not intuitive that you would think to go there to look for it? I don't quite understand the reasoning behind that, but nobody asked me and I'm above my pay grade, I guess. So. Um, well, any of actually the my Zoom is already set up, so we're already recording. It's 7:07, and I don't want to waste anyone's time tonight. So again, thank you to everyone who has participated and joined us this evening. I hope that you learned something that you hadn't learned before. I'm going to do my best to be a student as well. But again, if Matt says if he needs some help, I'm happy to chime in. But again, everybody, welcome to our little informative training session on how to create the drip scatter using Silhouette Studio. And with that, Matt, take it away.
yeah, there you go. I'll share my screen. All right, so we'll get started here. Let me get this silhouette. Again, if this version's not, if you're using the previous one, seems to be the latest version. But basically, throughout these rhinestones, I get enough people that just say they want this kind of drip or scatter effect below the name. So if you're creating an offset name or doing anything like that in your Silhouette Studio now, basically these two files, and we can ask Tanya how she wants to distribute them, but they're just the lower edge of what's going to happen. So these two versions were created in a different software, but you could manually create them here. But we'll go through it how to just insert this file and then build on top of it. So I'll start with this kind of more liquid drip one. But basically, we'll just create a text, and I'm just going to use the word sample. And then use it in I prefer a script font, but you could do it a lot of different ways. And then we'll just convert that to the size. So I usually set it about 8.5 to 9. Then we'll weld that shape up here. So if you guys are doing this now, you can just create a script, then I'll weld it just so I can apply an offset to it. So that just cuts out any of the overlap. So
I'm
now
gonna
I'll
go
just
ahead.
be, let me get,
Hold on a second,
what?
Matthew. We've got some folk who don't have their microphones muted. So I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone. And then if folk have questions, let's use the raise your hand
Interrupt, yeah.
feature. And then that way we won't be talking over one another during this session. Okay, Matt.
So like I said, you can, this lower edge, just consider it like it's a group of already pre-made circles, or stones, just to create that effect. And now we're just going to blend it in Studio. So now I'm just going to create my offset. So if you're used to this, we welded the name, and now we're going to go to the offset effect. And for this, I've been using 0.150 as kind of like the minimum, so I don't have overlap. You can go more. If you go less, you might have some interacting circles. But I'll just create the first one just by hitting apply. And then now that creates my first outside line, and right? And I can add stones to that, or I can just build lines. So if I go to offset again, it's going to build the second set. So this just depends on how wide you want this scatter effect to look. But I'm gonna apply 3 different lines, and it looks kind of busy now. And if I zoom in, you can see we have our 3 offsets. If I wanted to do more, I can do more, but I'm going to go back through and start with the first one and then go down to the rhinestone effect. And that's down in the lower right now for me, a few up from the bottom. And we'll just stick with the 10SS, and I'm just going to apply the pattern there. And you can adjust the spacing, right? If you've been to the rhinestone effect before, we can go more or less, just depend. A lot of times I see people do it very tightly spaced. Oops. 0.04 for the initial line. And then as we build out for our scatter, we'll increase that. So I just clicked on the second line, which hasn't been applied effect yet to it. I'm going to apply a rhinestone effect. And then I'm going to increase that spacing. I can just do by one click. It's going to default to this 0.125. I'm going to click the outside line, apply the rhinestone effect again, and then increase the spacing again. So basically for every line that I'm going out, except for the first or second, I'm doubling the spacing. Now, this is just with 3 lines. And if we come back out of that, you can see we're starting to get some of that scatter. And as we go, we can apply more lines, or we can, what I prefer to do is just add some manual work in there. But we'll set this now grouping. Oops, let me get rid of that. I'm going to grab my group of pre-made drip, right? And I'm going to move it up into this area where I want to work. And you can see the lower part of the P is going to need some work. So from this effect, basically now I'm going to go back through and grab these under the rhinestone panel, and I'm going to release these different layers so I can then modify these. And the other one too on Silhouette, I'm still under 10SS. I can go into freehand because now you can see I've got some fill in to do. So there, I'm just going to go in and kind of what I'm doing now is creating like the merge between the two so that when it's all said and done, it's going to look like it was all built together. And this is just take some, you can use your artistic impression on this. And let me move this zoom panel out of the way here just so I can see more of my screen. Even though these are currently 2 different colors, in the end, nobody would ever tell the difference. As you cut them out of your flock or whatever you're doing. So this just takes a little bit of work. It's not too bad to get and then you can end up with the effect that you want. So if I didn't have that, tonight we can see how Tanya wants to distribute it, but these lower 2 modification files will be available to you guys, and then you can build on top of that. So where we have these overlaps, I just have to go through and delete one of the 2. Oops, I still have it on freehand. Let me go back up here. And then I'm going to ungroup those. So now I can just basically go in and just do a minimal cleanup where my design had the overlap. And these, the initial drip in the blue was made in a different program just by tracing any kind of a visual file that you find. But I believe I don't do the same thing in Silhouette, but I'm sure you could do the same thing. You could bring in a thing and you don't even have to actually trace it. I'll show you a way you can just look at the image and then draw circles over the top of it. If you're worried about the trace feature. So let me see if I can't grab this one here. That one might not be. There we go. So I'm just using Control C and Control V if I want to modify some of these and get them out of the way. There, I'll just use the delete key for some of these ones that are intersecting my letter.
If you
So if I
hold
zoom
down,
out, again, there's more work. You can see how quickly that if you cut this, it's going to look like all one design. And again, there is preference to some people like to scatter. What I like to do sometimes on Silhouette Studio, I don't know if you guys see this, but people will get like what you'll see like, oh, these worms, because even though I'm doing the spacing, sometimes these will line up, right? So you'll get this kind of a line effect coming out as if you start putting more overlaps. So I just prefer to go in there and delete some of these or move them just so you get more of a scatter, more of an intentional one than Silhouette might initially give you. But it really doesn't take as much time as it might seem overwhelming at first, but within a few minutes, we can kind of create, a custom scatter on top of a name effect. And a lot of people like that. Maybe you're using puff vinyl in here, or you can go back in and you can actually use stones in those letters. But, sometimes having those lines that come out can be not very visually appealing. But if we just zoom out, And if you took this for what it is, I don't know how many minutes that was, but you can quickly blend this lower kind of template file into the name. And we could do the same thing with this. This is all this is too. It's the exact same. It's just a pre-made traced file that you could come in and overlay this, underneath that area and have the different kind of drip. We'd have to go through and just get rid, regroup those and get rid of them, but I can just lay those over here. But again, all I'm doing is setting that template, and then I'll go through and, clean up or add to the stones that are overlapped. That's the only thing I don't like about Studio is the zoom. I'd like to zoom on my mouse, but I haven't figured out a way to do that. So you can see that we can create different overlaps in there and blend these two designs together. So if you're just using Studio, this is the way we can make these templates available to you guys, and you can create some cool designs. Again, that would need some more cleanup, but just for the purpose of time tonight, you can see that if you sent that, if we clean up a few more of these overlaps, you'd have two different versions of kind of a drip effect. And if you want to add more offsets, you can do that. We could go back to the original name and add a line and get it, just start it just outside what we're doing, right? And then add another layer of stones. And then increase our spacing one more click there. So depending on how wide your personal preference is, you can go back and add more like that, or you can do them manually just under the freehand. That's how I prefer to kind of add in some random effect, depending on how much room you have on your template. Now, does that seem easy enough that anyone can do that? I don't know if I went too fast. We can go back and look at it, but that's how I would do it in Studio. Tanya, would you change anything on that?
Probably will go about it pretty much the same way. I think I'll ask if anyone who's participating with us tonight, if anyone has any questions, they want to raise their hand, we'll try to go ahead and do that. But I think also what might be beneficial, and if you have time for us tonight, Matthew, is maybe to show people how to create the drip pattern by bringing in, some sort of graphic
Yeah.
from Google and doing the trace to create that. But I see we have
Okay.
Teresa. Teresa has her hand raised. So Teresa, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. Your explanation was great. I did have a quick question. When you were copying, you were doing freehand on your Rhinestone panel, and it appeared like you were just clicking and creating a dot. You were not,
Yes.
you have to copy and paste type of thing?
Yeah. So if you go in,
Oh.
exactly. So again, if I didn't know, the copy and paste kind of takes forever and it puts your paste down and you might double click something. So if you just click on freehand on the size of stone you want to click, I mean, as fast as you can click, you're doing it. And it's a way to make it really cool, and you can
That's
fill
awesome.
and
Thank you. That's huge.
yeah. I mean, again, I could see totally. I would start with like, oh, I have to Control C, Control V, and then I have to grab this one and move it, and then I have to do another Control V, and it drops it down here. That's just a much slower way to do it, but you can do it that way too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that way.
But
Thank
I
you.
mean, freehand is wonderful. You can just go in and again, maybe you have some 6SS that you want to do inside here. Go ahead, just freehand it. We can make a line for the letter. And then we can get rid of that outline if we're not using vinyl. And then I can just Control Z back if I made a mistake, obviously. But yeah, the freehand in Silhouette Studio is I mean, there's a lot of programs out there, but this is you can do a lot with this just by opening up some of those options. And
Exactly.
if I was going to trace something, We can look on Google, if you have an idea of what you guys want to trace, but we can just, let's go see if we can find a drip effect. And then if you save it as an SVG, you can then just apply it to future ones. Here's a couple different. Those are pretty thick, but let me see if I can just see that image. Yes, we can do it. So I gotta and we'll bring that in. I just laid a Rhinestone down. I started on the freehand. So I would set it to my approximate, 9.5 or 10 inches. Now, what I don't do, well, you can do this, like what Tanya was saying, is we can go back through, and where's my trace at now? I don't use it that much.
The fourth icon from the top.
There it is. So I swear the picture used to be different too.
It did.
I could be wrong. So we could also do this, you know, and then you can fill that. You could fill those objects with the rhinestone panel. But you're going to do some, and then just do some manual cleanup to make this rounded over and fill some spacing. The other option is just to keep this image as a reference on freehand, and then, do your shape, just depending on how much time, if you prefer to clean up or you want to just make it. Sometimes I lean on more on the freehand stuff. In the end, I think it's just less work, but it takes a little bit longer. This is a good base to start from down below. So if you were to do that and complete that design or whatever custom design, you could see in the end, you could save that as an SVG, and now you would have it for any future template projects that maybe somebody hired you to make a name, and then you would just blend it in. You don't want this. We could do that scatter pattern too. We could try that and see what that looks like. Let me just trace that again, but oops. Well, you see how you could easily make your own little, depending, and you can do any shape you wanted, and then you could make your own panel. Let's see, we're gonna do it the other way. Rhinestone, and then we're just gonna kind of. Yeah, so I mean, it gives you that option, when you're using this radial fill, gives you a little bit better definition, and then you can come through and space those out and kind of get your middle section. And then you could, for the top, you could leave it flat for now, or you could create your own kind of variable effect.
Another thing they can do, Matthew, of course, right, is before they start doing their manual editing, they can change the spacing of the stones. Silhouette always defaults that spacing to that 0.039, and they can always come in and bring that spacing down just a little bit to get an idea of what those stones would look like when they're spaced a little bit closer together, and that would help also save some of the manual editing that they may need to do. So if you just go in and type in that box and just change it to 0.020, or any number that you like, as long as it's not 0.000, because that's too close.
Yeah, exactly. So you can do that. Exactly. You could get yourself a better start by entering in whatever 0.06, or 0.04, whatever your flavor is. And then, from here, like I would probably accept this and then go in and start manually filling, just looking at it. But you could quickly end up with your own little template that you could then apply to future scatter designs by building on top of those offsets.
Exactly.
That's super cool. But I would just release those and then come in and just try to get rid of that straight line, either by just adding some random ones above it that I might build into the next scatter, or just, you could always go in and delete some of those. But, and then when I moved it, when I saved this SVG, I could easily just, I would say that easily, but sometimes to click on them is not easy. But then I could just bring that up like we did, in the previous example here. But I mean, I'm more than willing. You could find me on Facebook too in the group. But if you guys work on this stuff and you get stuck, just shoot a message and we'll figure it out. It doesn't take very long.
Questions?
But if anybody, I mean, does anybody have any else that how they would treat a name with offset in Studio?
Saw Matt, I saw my good friend Matt Fuller drop his take on the scatter drip using his Rhinestone template creator tool.
Mhm.
And these are all great ways for you guys to create things, save yourself some time. Because again, designing is all about time, right? We want to spend as least amount of time creating designs so that we can create other designs. So, knowing how to use these tools, knowing how to use other apps to help streamline the process is beneficial and just, a super way to go ahead and move through these projects that you may have so that you can either make more designs or earn more money, whichever one suits your purposes. So as a plus for participating with us tonight, Matthew, would you be willing to share the SVG files for the two scatters that you showed us how to manipulate tonight, and then
Oh
I
yeah,
can send
absolutely.
it to the folk who've participated?
Yeah,
That'll be their perk for spending their time with us tonight. They'll get their already pre-made two scatters, and then they can practice on how to create their own
yeah,
designs.
definitely.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So does anyone have any questions? Anything else that we might be able to help you with in relation to either tracing or more scatter techniques or tips? This is your time.
Um, Miss Tanya,
Yes, honey.
it's me, Nita. I, I don't know why I cannot get mine on the last one to convert to Cricut. I don't know. It keeps making it back to a line.
Well, the one thing that I always tell folk when you're working in Silhouette and you're going to export anything out of Silhouette into Cricut Design Space, always make sure that after you release the rhinestones that you make sure you you make the compound path. Because if you don't make the compound path out of Silhouette, when you import it into Cricut, it will do all kinds of crazy things. So I would always suggest to go back and make sure that whatever you were working on, that you had made it a compound path. And how you do that is when you click on it, if make compound path is grayed out, that means that your design is already in a compound path. But if you click on it and it says make compound path, then you need to go ahead and click that to make it a compound path.
Okay.
So try that, but you know that if that doesn't work, you know how to reach me.
Okay. Thank
Okay?
you.
You're welcome,
Uh-huh.
sweetheart.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mia.
Hi. Thank you guys for offering this class this evening. I am actually driving, so I'm not in front of my computer, but I do have a question regarding scatter. You may have gone over it, so please forgive me if I am repeating something that you all have already gone over. So I know in Silhouette Studio, whenever doing the scatter, I always see those little legs. It's almost like a stone on top of a stone. So it kind of makes like a weird line. And I hate that. So do you know of any way to avoid that where it's literally like each stone is separate from the other? Instead of having the stones one on top of the other, either going like left or right?
When you're doing what? Okay, I missed what you said. Tell me again.
So when you do the scatter, I know sometimes whether you're going around a letter or
Mm-hmm.
a shape or anything, when you adjust the scatters, it seems like at some point, once you do the different offsets and things and you change the spacing and everything, there
Yes.
always seems to be those little kind of scatter legs. So instead of them being like just individual stones, they're like two stones on top of each other or more, where they either go left or right, or it just looks a little wonky to me. And I can't, that's the best way I can explain it. But sometimes just the farther you go out with the design, it just I'm just trying to figure out how to avoid those lines. And it's not exactly a line, it's just stones that are kind of one on top of the other.
Stones that are overlapping, you
Not
know,
not
so
necessarily overlapping.
they just line up as you
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that is all in the software, and it's dependent upon the spacing. So the only suggestion that I have, and Matthew can chime in if he knows something else, but at that point, all I would do is, if you don't like where the placement of the stone is, once you release the rhinestones, just manually move them to wherever you want them to be, or delete whatever you don't want to be in that area.
Okay.
But it's
Thank
dependent
you.
upon it. They come out like that because of the spacing value.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much.
I'm trying to pay attention to the chat, and
I think Matthew is trying to say something, but he's on mute.
yeah, Matthew, are you muted? Let me see.
No, I was
There.
going to say I put it on my screen here. I think that's what she's referencing.
It is. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Matt.
so you get kind of like these little like worm lines. They're not really
Yeah,
overlap, but they just don't look. They just don't look like you're not getting the expected result, right?
exactly. They look more like lines instead of like a true scatter.
Yeah, right. So we can go through and let me just see if I can mess it up. And sometimes if you got to just adjust the spacing, and sometimes I'll use the layer panel here to find the right level.
Locked in into the up arrow. The up arrow takes you in increments of 125 in your spacing. So you go from 125 to 250 to 375. But you can always type in, a value that you want in there to try to achieve a different type of scatter pattern. So you're not locked into the arrows. The arrows just take you up one click at a time. But you can go in there and you can type in any value that you want on those offsets to try to get your design or your scatter to look a certain kind of way. Of course, the scatter is always going to take on the shape of whatever it is that you place the offset around. But again, it's really all in the spacing, and then after that, releasing the rhinestones, and then doing that manual editing and respacing.
Yeah.
Thank you both again.
You're welcome.
But yeah, for some reason, it does like to just line them up when you're going through the increments. So you might even be able to manually type in half of that too. And you get a little different result. But yeah, I just tend to end up like manually adjusting them. And remember, with the freehand, you can come in, you can kind of visually start changing that look too. Maybe
Looks
get
like
a
it could
different
be
result.
it looks like it could take a long time, but as Matthew showed you, when you use the freehand
Yeah.
tool, it's really just a matter of just click, 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 click,
Mm-hmm.
and then just going back in and just, deciding what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of. I think what happens a lot of times is that we tend to overthink the process. And the software is really a lot easier than what we probably, think that it is. It's just really a matter of learning the tools that are available to you and then practicing using those tools to refine your skills. So
Oh,
anyone
yeah,
else?
it doesn't take too long.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay, I can
Yeah.
hardly hear you. Who's speaking? Oh, Pam. Hi, Pam.
Hi. Um, I saw a design earlier and I think it was on your site and it was like a name and half of the rhinestones were one color on the top and half of them were another color on the bottom. Are you familiar with that design? Is there any way we can figure out how to do that without jumping over through hoops?
Oh, right. So let's say just for the one I have on the screen, like if you wanted an exact half to be a different color, is what you're saying?
Right. Like
Yeah.
horizontally.
Yep. So I've released them all at this point. So what I would do um, is just I would create a reference, and there might be a different way to do this, but I would create my line, and you can do it by a guideline too, but I'm just visually looking through the name, and I'm going to select this upper half. I'm just going to regroup those, and then now I'm going to move those out of the way, and I'll get rid of the name in a second, but then if this is just for that other example, but if this design had been completed on the bottom as well, right, with the drip or whatever, I would regroup these. And then now when I cut this flock, and again, Tanya has a couple of videos where you can create a triangle here for reference. Now I can just brush in whatever color stones, 10SS in the bottom and then 10SS on the top. Then I'd have my two transfers.
Wow. Thank you. That
That's
was
kind of the
awesome.
simplest way. Now, in some people like more like a gradient type of look or a fill. And so if I was doing that, I would have this upper selected. I would ungroup this. I would have this upper selected, and then I would go through and just oops, let me go back one. I would just manually hold the shift key down and add those ones that I kind of like how I wanted to add that color. And then I would regroup that. And then as I move that, see now I could create a gradient effect per se, right? And I could do it in both ways. I could do the upper and the lower that way.
Oh, okay. Very
That's
good.
how I would do it because sometimes you don't just want that horizontal, flat, distinct line. You want something that's going to go through. So you can just go through and click and add your stones that you want to be. Let's say the top is blue and the bottom is red or whatever. Then I would have that gradient. It really isn't that hard to do. We could, if we reset this and we could go back to maybe, let me see which one I have the line on. I think I deleted it.
Going through that scenario again.
You could create a pretty nice gradient effect by doing that.
Matthew, would you mind going through that scenario again, but then using the color palette to just kind of show the visual so that people can see the actual color come to
Yeah,
life?
like to then fill the circles at the end.
Right, like using let's go ahead and use the color palette to go ahead and color those circles in, and then ungroup a section and show how you can create the gradient by just clicking on the individual circles and then turning it to the different color.
Right. So I would just, as I have this primary red, I would just continue to add like, okay, I'm going to use this gradient. And I'm just going to hold shift down as I'm adding these to that cluster, and I'm going to group that. And then I just fill those. Now you can see I've added more of my gradient going down. So if I move that up and out of the way, we can show this. Let me get these in a different color. I'm just freehanded and realigning that, and then if I wanted to add more blue working its way up, I'm just gonna ungroup those shapes on the top half, and then my blue is not grouped though, so that's a mistake. So when I do this, I gotta move this. Let me just move this up. I'm gonna regroup these because I want to add the blue on the way up. So I want to group those into a series, move my red back down, and then I'm gonna ungroup the red. And then now when I select the blue, I'm going to add some more just by holding the shift, and I'll zoom in so it looks a little easier, but I'm going to hold shift and just let me ungroup that. There we go. So I've got my blue. I would ungroup both. Hold on one second. Let's see if I can go back enough. There we go. I selected them all. So they're all selected. I'm just hitting Control Z to try to go back in time enough to do that. if it's not going to let me. Okay, there was the problem. So there's my blue. I had that selected when I did the red. So I'm ungrouping the red. I'm going to just keep the group. The blue is grouped, right? So now I'm just going to go through it while holding shift and add the little, which red ones I want to gradient affect this. And then when I cut that flock, obviously those will all be in my blue or whatever color you want to slide it over, get some more blue stones. And then now before I touch anything, I need to regroup that whole set. And then I'm going to add the blue to it. And then now you can see that I'm starting to get a multicolor kind of scattered blue as well, right? So
And
that
do
when
you
I
know?
go to cut this, when I go to cut this series, that now I have this that's going to line up with the text. And now I can brush all the colored stones in that I want on the bottom half. And then I can do the same to the top.
And so as a reminder, for those of you who may be working in Silhouette Studio, but then again, like I said, importing your SVG file into Cricut Design Space, be sure to, Matt, if you go ahead and you just show them quickly, again, right click, and then you want to make that, you either want to convert, group it all together, and then make it a compound path. When you do that, if you're working with the different color spectrum, it may change your color, but again, remember the coloring is always just a visual effect for you. It has no bearing on when you cut your template. So if you do that and you make it into the compound path and it changes the color back to a default of some sort, you can just go back to your palette wheel and reselect that color for visual purposes.
And it didn't seem to do that on mine, and I don't use Cricut, so you guys are the experts there. But if you just needed to make it a compound path, you can see that I did that. And now it's ready to save out as an SVG. But those are the two ways. I would either make a hard line, like I said, a hard line transfer, and you can bring a visual line. I'm just holding control on the upper ruler and bringing that down. And then I would draw my square if I wanted to make two distinct colors. Or if I wanted to create a gradient, you could go through. And again, I would have had much more diversity of circles prior. This was just to show that worm effect a second ago. But then you can go through and isolate your colors to the two separate flock pages.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I put the two main files in the chat. And if you guys if you have any trouble downloading them, we can take care of that, but they should be in there.
Okay.
Tanya, you're muted for me.
I was saying that I went to go download it and I got a notice that said potential security issue detected.
Oh, there you go.
I
I
gotta
don't know. Maybe it's your computer's being overprotected.
Okay. McAfee can do that sometimes. So, okay, so that was wonderful. I mean, I learned something new tonight. I hope you guys learned something new tonight. I definitely want you to go out and take these two scatter patterns that Matthew shared with us tonight and just try it for yourself. Practice creating these designs, practice using the freehand tool, add dots, take dots away, do whatever makes you happy. And let us know, what you come up with or whether or not you still need help. Like I said, I'm in a number of groups. Just look for my name, Tanya Pruitt Lyons. If not, follow me, join, or reach out to me on a DM, and I'm more than happy to try to help you figure out whatever your issues might be using Silhouette Studio. So before we go, does anybody have any last final questions for Matthew or me tonight? All right, well, I'm going to.
Again, Tanya, thank you for having me on with your group. But if anybody has any trouble with scatter effect, send us your file. We will work it. We're not charging. We will get you to where you can cut and make your project. So for these two applications, And we have many more down the road, but we will help you, no problem. So Tanya knows that. Just send me the file. We'll get it back to you fast.
Yes, Matthew is a godsend, folks. Like I said, and I don't say that lightly. I'm in a lot of groups, and I know that you all are as well. And it's very rare to find folk who are willing to do things for you and not charge you an arm and a leg, or just not charge you at all. And it's not to say that there won't be times when there might be some paid, training, one-on-ones or things of that nature. But the goal here is to try to get everybody proficient and to feel comfortable in using the software so that you can let your creativity flow, right? There's so much out here and available for all of us to do that we don't have to gatekeep this information. We can share it with you freely. And like I said, but if you decide that you need some more personalized or individual attention and you want to have that connection with either of us or whatever, we're more than happy to help you get there and such. So with that, like I said, I've got everybody's email who registered tonight. If you didn't get the files in the download, I will be sure to send those to you. And again, just like I said, just be on the lookout for me and Matt and a few other people that I'm bringing along with me to help you guys on your Rhinestone journey.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, everyone.